I just quickly wanted to say a huge thank you to Margaret for that really detailed and exhaustive presentation on the situation of child rights across various groups of migrants and some of the issues there. I think I particularly liked the framework that you set out within the principles of survival, development, protection, and participation. I thought that was really great. And you mentioned the issue, the ongoing issue of corporal punishment, how it's banned in school but not at home. And I think in one of my publications did capture some of the recommendations on the UPR that were made to South Africa on that specific issue of corporal punishment. Where kind of I had a question on, and I think you spoke twice and in really detail about the best interest principle of the child. And I just wanted to ask you if you had a quick thought about whether that best interest principle is taken into consideration in the immigration context, especially where if an adult with children has violated immigration law and has to be deported, whether the best interest principle is taken into account if you've encountered any scenario like that in your work. Because in many cases that I have researched into, that principle seems not to be taken in that context of immigration, especially when an adult with a child has violated immigration rules and they have to be deported. There seems to be very little consideration given to the child. So I think my question was just whether you had a quick thought on that.
Yes, from my side, thank you very much, Margaret, for that presentation. You mentioned the question of children that were recruited, especially from the SADC countries in relation to South Africa, where you also gave the scenario of the recent case of those that were miners that were trapped in a mine, and then you also indicated how they found that some of those were children, and how then does the South Africa in protection of those children who were recruited and some taken from their own family under the pretense of a better life in South Africa? How do we protect those children and make sure that they are well documented and also reunited with their families, especially because it was clear that some of the children mentioned that they were told that this is going to have a good life in South Africa. Thank you very much again for the great presentation.
Thank you for your inputs. I'd like Ms. Margaret Zulu to please just give feedback to the questions, and kindly note that unfortunately the session was automatically closed and we apologize for that. I'm honored, did not intend not to have given you the opportunity to raise your questions, not at all. So Ms. Margaret Zulu, would you be so kind to respond back to the questions posed to you? Just to quickly check, is Mam Zulu? Yes, she's in the session. Over to you, Mam.
Yes. I'm in the session. Thank you very much, and thank you for the questions. Let me start with the one from Dr. Damien. I would say yes and no. The best interests of the child are considered in the migration context. We have experiences as Save the Children South Africa where a child has been involved in irregular migration, and the first thing is to deport the parents. There's no conversations in that moment with the child to see what does the child want? Does the child want to be with the mother or with the parent? So immediately the child is put in a place of safety whilst the parent is in the processes of, is detained in the process to be deported. And so the Department of Social Development ensures that this child is placed in the place of care and safety. However, that process can be, improved in terms of ensuring that the child is involved in that decision, in terms of ensuring that the reunification, which is key to us, ensuring that the child is with the parents, happens within, you know, in time, and doesn't. Sometimes we have children that are still in the places of care, CYCCs, for even many years, you know. So that can be improved, and I think there's more debate that we can have around best interests of the child within the migration context. I believe with the legal instruments that we have, the actual practice can be improved with the duty bearers. And secondly, coming to the question on the children involved in the Stilfontein mining crisis, it's a pity, because indeed what we need is to ensure, what we want to see, we would like to see, is that children are reunified. We are aware of children that are from Mozambique mostly, and many other surrounding countries. And so they, in terms of ensuring that these children are protected, we've engaged with the different stakeholders to ensure that, one, these children are not being looked at as perpetrators and using the Children's Act as the sole guiding legal instrument, but instead using the, and not even the Immigration Act, but using the Children's Act to ensure that, one, the best interests of the child are looked at, the child is not detained, they are not criminalized. We are aware that now the Department of Justice has been in the process of dropping the charges of those children, the initial children who were criminally charged. And so we also applaud the Department of Social Development in ensuring that these children are placed in the CYCs, places of care, and there's processes, court processes now, to ensure that these children are actually repatriated safely back home. And so as civil society organizations, including under the National Interagency Working Group, we are hoping that we can engage further with all the different stakeholders and ensure that the protections of these children are enjoyed. I think those would be my two submissions, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Margaret. I think critical areas of subjective advocacy that is required from us as a society, and those that are working in the front line of addressing these primary challenges. And I know that in-depth discussions are not just to reflect on particularly how do we navigate these subjective issues from a legal framework, but also from a practical perspective as a society. And I think what I'll just also highlight, particularly in the challenges related to the conversation that is at hand and the questions related, is that with the deportation of the young children who come up to the ages of 18, having placed in these care facilities over the period and being separated from their primary family, it is found that even if they get taken back to their home countries, they are not able to integrate into their home countries. Because one, when they were in the country, they were minors, and two, they were then raised in South Africa as a particular country that I can make reference to. And I know Margaret can attest to this. And so even their relatability of the culture, the norms, and just facilitating themselves as an individual, it is more identified in a foreign country than it is to their primary country. And so even that becomes a primary challenge. And we are also understanding that even if you do take them to their country of origin, they tend to come back illegally back into the country, posing another significant challenge. And these are the challenges that are related to border control. How are some of these minors coming back and forth between the country, or because they do not know what else they can relate to, the only familiarity they have is in a foreign state. And so we're needing to find practical solutions. And as coming into a point of departure of thoughts here, I think the critical aspect is that why we have been referencing or addressing the primary subject project of undocumented is because we are wanting practical solutions to these challenges. What we are saying is, instead of separating families, make sure that everybody is identifiable. Let them have the necessary documentation they need, and it is in reference to identifying where they're from, why they're here, how long are they intending to be here, how long do they need to be here, and then we have data that supports the primary issues and then can address the rights of children having access, the rights of children being able not to be separated from their families, and then placed in separated homes, having their parents moved into a different complete state, maybe deported even, and how that fundamentally challenges a child's development. I think there are traumas related to that. There are fundamental mental health issues that come with that. And we need to take into consideration how separating a mother and a child, father and a child, not just looking at the mother as a primary caregiver, but looking at it from a family unit, the primary issues that come with the fundamental development of a child.